What is up, generals? We are back with Ultimate General Civil War, and this is the J&P Rebalance Mod CSA Legendary Major General playthrough, and we're talking. This is Fiasco, and this is the camp screen before the skirmish at Ambush Convoy. So we've cleaned up, stay alert. We've cleaned up the army after Ambush Convoy. You knew we were having a fight. Some units got beat up, but it wasn't as bad as kind of I was expecting or bad as it could have been. I'm still at this point quite nervous about the build up to Shiloh. I don't know if we're going to have enough guns. I don't know if we're going to have enough resources. I don't know if we're going to have enough officers. We're going to have enough officers. We're certainly going to have enough men. Anyway, so stay alert is a real pain. It's not that much of a pain. It's just kind of a grindy fight. And there's some parts about this battle that I'm really happy with how they went, and some parts of this battle that I'm not so crazy about my performance in. So we predominantly earmark 2nd Division. I'm trying to bloody these troops, get them some experience. So we predominantly earmark 2nd Division with the task of holding in what will become our front line. And I put 5th Infantry here as the unit to do the majority of the grunt work in the center of the fight because they have the easier to replace M41, M1841 rifle. And the MJ&Gs are a little harder to come by, and so those go on units that I'm not as convinced are going to take major casualties in the course of this battle because this is kind of a grindy fight. Or can be. So 1st Rifles and 1st Light Infantry are both earmarked to handle the cavalry threat, while everything else is predominantly earmarked to handle the infantry threat. And in the center, I've got 1st Artillery, the Napoleon unit, and I've got 2nd Artillery, the Ordnance unit there. And I'm hoping against hope that we get reinforcements sooner rather than later, because this is a battle where my perception anyway is you're just holding on for dear life until you get your reinforcements. And then once you do, things turn really quickly. So we get a really lucky opener here. The cavalry, for whatever reason, decides to attack and does so. And I've deliberately put 1st Rifles where I've put them because I want them to be kind of a threat breaker on their cavalry. 1st Rifle has the most accurate rifles currently in the army. 1st Rifles has the best stats for shooting currently in the army. And the last time I played this battle, it was Major General, and the AI got a lucky break on splits, and so they had just this swarm of cavalry kind of really bugging me, tearing a hole in my side, and I, it's one of these things where you just barely don't have enough resources to go around, and you're being attacked from enough different angles that you're not really sure what the correct response is. And to a large degree, that's happening all over the map. There is this ginormous Union infantry presence that, I'm going to be able to trade on a man-for-man favorable basis. But one of the things I'm really learning about this game at legendary difficulty is you simply cannot grind it out with AI brigades that are twice the size of you. They will happily stand there and take it. And even if you're in 100 and X% cover, even if you're rifled and they're not, and you're perked for accuracy and they're not, and even if they've got smooth bores and you've got rifles, there's fucking 6,000 of them. It's, and I try not to swear all the darn time. But I'm a vet, guys. Swear words are my commas. And this particular situation for Richardson, the 2nd version of Richardson, where he's posted up in that house, is an excellent place for that unit. It's cavalry. They're in it's cannon, and they're in canister range, but they're also in 100% cover. Now, I know artillery generally doesn't benefit the same way from that cover as infantry does. I don't remember what the math is, but I've never seen infantry or artillery get like a lot better than, I think, 55 or 60% cover, whereas infantry frequently hangs out, if you do it right, in the 98 to 100 or 99% kind of range. So, things generally work out pretty well on my frontline position while I have maneuver unit parity with them. But I get distracted with things in the north, and Carmichael here really, like, I get kind of caught in this. It's beautiful. Like, watching it now, it's a brilliant maneuver by the AI. And it works so well. It's just a great maneuver. They do a good job with this. Is they come in and they attack me with the shock cavalry unit Carmichael, and they attack my skirmishers, who are not perked for speed. So they can run away, but they're not going to run away fast enough, I don't think. Now, interestingly, I managed to do kind of okay in the melee, which I don't necessarily know if that's how that should go. So I maneuver first rifles to support. They're going to go run over and provide supporting fires and whatever. At the second I do that, their other units, Powell 1 and 2 and everybody else, comes screaming in and hit first. So first has to stand there and basically can't support first Lightfoot. And first Lightfoot can't support first infantry. And neither one of them are in position to defend the fort when one of these cav units comes screaming in. It's great. I'm really impressed with the AI here. I know they're basically just kind of like, their programming is essentially just kind of like, I need to get to the flag, right? Like, they just kind of make a beeline for the flag, and you can kind of use that and exploit it and everything else. But oh my goodness, this was so, like, it was frustrating in the moment. I was like, oh gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do here. But it's to watch it again after the fact. Like, yeah, guys, I was really nervous. It was like, it was a really good move, really good maneuver. So I do the thing that I always do in the vanilla game, although I usually do it with detached skirmishers. In the vanilla game, I just detach a bunch of skirmishers, put them in the fence line, and then I have a significantly more solid front line. Because I'll have 2 more units deployed on the front line. It's amazing, to me anyway, what not being able to detach skirmishers does to the pace and flow of some of these battles. And this is one of them. This is one of the battles where I think not being able to detach skirmishers is a real bear to the mission. Because I don't have enough. I can't be in enough places at once. And so I can complain about that, and I do, and I will, and I'm doing it right now. But from a game design standpoint, I was invested in every decision I made in this battle. And it felt to me like a desperate race against time, where, let's pretend this is real life. The history books would tell the tale of the other echelons of Fiasco's corps receiving desperate pleas for reinforcements from couriers streaming back from the battle happening at the supply point. And they would, there would be a harrowing tale about Division Commander Bernard B. Espousing his men to run faster, or espousing his men to, put their backs into it, or work harder, or whatever, and, whipping horses and all that kind of stuff. Like, it would be the stuff of legend. And it's because you're hanging on for dear life this entire battle. And I think the difference is that if I can detach skirmishers, I just do. I just detach skirmishers, put them in the fence line, and the cavalry threat is like annoying, but it's no longer this thing I'm actually engaged with. And then I have 2 more units on my front line, and this fight goes much more smoothly for me. So speaking of the front line, I have this very delicate balance of, I'm trying to cancel these charges. And I'm more or less successful most of the time, but not quite there. And not until some of these units get into the woods and they're at point blank range and, like there's not anywhere else for me to retreat, and I just kind of have to duke it out with them. And I think I only really managed to cancel these charges because they're taking canister at point blank, and I don't, it's tough. And the only reason I would say it might be beneficial from a game design standpoint to ease back on this particular battle is I don't really know how else to fight this battle and not take these kinds of casualties. Some of these units are almost to the breaking point. 5th Infantry shatters they're not shatters, they're routes from this combat, and it takes so long to get them back in the fight, and I can't get 1st Artillery out of there fast enough that 1st Artillery goes from 9 guns down to 3 because they eat a volley at close range from Marsh and a magically rallied Wraith. That's devastating, dude. Like the Confederates are already struggling to afford to keep rolling. Like at this point in time, I just run 5th Infantry in there. Like I don't care that they're already at the breaking point. I just need physical bodies. I need shields. I need them in front of the guns. Now, as I'm watching this and I say I don't know how else to fight this battle, I'm actually looking at what if you see where 4th Infantry is right now and 2nd Artillery is? What if I abandon the supply point? Hear me out. What if I post up everything in that triangle and make it an unapproachable fortress? Instead of being spread out, I'm tight. And I know the AI is going to just go for the flag. And I just shoot them. I flank them the entire time. It's a thing that I'm willing to try at some juncture as a thought experiment. But in the moment, I've engaged them in a more traditional kind of, define the front, look for the flank kind of engagement. And the problem with that kind of an engagement is the horrendous losses I take. In no one area do I have decisive force with which to crush the enemy. In every area, I have barely enough force, and the operative word here is barely. I have barely enough force to throw the enemy back. And throwing them back or dissuading them from attacking does not equal defeating them. I've got Fiasco here desperately exhorting his men to fight. I've got, every time I try and earmark 1st Infantry to go handle, the fight at the front, every time I try, there's cavalry snapping at my heels. This is why I'm so of two minds about this battle, because it's a fantastic play experience. During the battle, I was firmly engaged in every decision I was making. I was very aware of the long-term consequences of some of the costs I was enduring to fight this battle, and I was continuously being like, "Oh God, just give me a minute, let me breathe." I remember playing this at Major General too, the 1.24 mod, and it felt very similar, where it was this race against time. Like, can I hold them off? Can I? It felt like you've ever watched Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, the battle at the film Two Towers. Can you hold off this overbearing Uruk-hai horde long enough for Gandalf, Magneto to show up with, no, Magneto was also is that right? Yeah. Magneto was also Gandalf the Grey. The other crossover I'm thinking of is Xavier and Picard, unrelated. So it really desperately feels like there's no way I can win this battle. But I mean, what do I do? If they take the flag, how long do I have to pick it back up? I don't know. So eventually we deal with the cavalry threat, but not before my units are at half strength, not before my artillery has been decimated, not before, and basically this, to me, this battle is a victory on paper, but it very much feels like a Pyrrhic one. And it makes me wonder, like, I know I can't afford the draw. And I've already built the army for Shiloh. So when I record these videos, I've told you, for the legendary playthrough, it looks like I'm going to be doing post commentary the entire way through. At least for now, until the army gets a little more solid on its feet, and then maybe I can think about live recording. So there's our Carmichael again, just waiting for my reinforcements to show up like a dick. Like, he's doing the same crap I do. Like, I can't complain because I, as a player, would do the exact same thing. In fact, I think at first Winchester, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to wait for reinforcements and post up exactly where they're going to be and destroy them and all that kind of thing. So, anyway, he's doing the same shit I would, all I can say. So the reinforcements finally show up. Look for me on the third day over the moon or whatever. And it, like, as I'm playing, there is a palpable sense of relief, but I know I'm not out of it yet. I know I'm not past the worst of it, especially because 7th Infantry had to run away from this attacking force MacArthur so much. Like, MacArthur would not break. He would not give up his charge. He was like, this is the thing I want to do. This is the thing I was born for, is I'm going to make this charge. Gosh darn it, for come hell or high water. So I just had to keep on falling back and keep on falling back and keep on falling back. And the end result is that my position has deteriorated pretty significantly, because what I wanted to be doing by now is I wanted to have first rifles. You see this very thin strip on the... We'll presume that the screen is oriented north. I don't think it is, but let's pretend that it is. So you see this thin strip of woods north and east of this tiny road coming from the house where all the fighting is. I want 1st Infantry there. I want them supporting 4th. I still want 4th and 5th to be in the meat of it, doing all the heavy fighting, because they're the ones that have guns I can replace. But I want 1st Infantry caving dudes' flanks in, because 1st Infantry has Harper's Ferries, and 1st Infantry has an accuracy stat somewhere in the low 60s or something stupid like that. Like, they're, my premier unit by leaps and bounds. And I mean, the kinds of casualties some of these units are taking, I think they're going to remain my premier unit for a long time. Because, I mean, I can't afford to replace these units with veterans, and $5,000 of vets isn't going to buy shit in some of these units. So, at the end of this battle, 4th and 5th Infantry are basically back to rookie status, right? Like, that's more or less what happens. So my position has degraded such that I've got 5th Infantry kind of trying to support. I got 1st finally coming online as far as that's concerned. I've got 3rd Horse Artillery. They're 3rd Artillery, right? But they're the Horse Artillery. I've got 3rd Horse Artillery finally coming to support. Well, not finally, but they're coming to relieve 1st Artillery, who I'm now going to pull off the line. Because it occurs to me sometime around now, hey, Fiasco, you've got 3 24-pounders in inventory, and you've also got, and this is not exactly the situation, like, I didn't plan for this to happen this way. I was perfectly content going into Shiloh with no 24-pounders. I've also realized that I've misplayed something, is I had both 1st Rifles and 5th Infantry moving to that blotch of trees south and west of the thin road, intending to support 4th in the middle, when what I should have done is I should have had either 4th or 5th, 1st or 5th here, where the 5th is going now, to body block for 3rd. So 3rd takes some unnecessary direct musket fire, which is just user error on my part, plain and simple. And it's just me effing up. So yeah, like, this feels like a Pyrrhic victory. Like, I win and I get a board wipe, and those are both good things in making Shiloh a little more bearable. And plot twist, because I'll upload the Shiloh camp video probably the same night that I do this. I've built an army I'm pretty comfortable taking into Shiloh. I've had to make some compromises. I would prefer to go into that battle with everything wearing rifles, In my major general playthrough, I managed to do that in the 1.24 mod. I'm pretty sure I managed to get every single Fiasco Corps soldier bearing a rifle, and that is not the case here. Plenty of rebores, plenty of percussions, plenty of that kind of stuff. And I'm even using the Springfield 55, which I've been on record as being a gun I'm not a fan of. But I need bodies. And those poor sods are going to be the ones standing in the direct line of fire, while the guys with rifles are going to be on the flanks. Which is something else I'm thinking about for army design. If Legendary is going to keep playing like this until my artillery corps and my rifle corps gets to a certain level, a certain critical mass of lethality, I probably have to design units to just stand in the front and take a beating and just always be rookies, like always be filled with rookies and always be filled with whatever the cheapest, crappiest gun I've got is. Because I think that there's a certain portion of Legendary where you just duke it out. And that feels bad, man. But I think it is what it is. I think that's just the way that it is. And there's also a moment here where I do something wrong. First Dragoon goes in for some shots on the on one of the artillery batteries. I should have kept going and grabbed that supply wagon. So I mean, then there's I think some lessons to be learned here. So let's talk about let's do the lessons learned thing. Panda Kraut made an excellent comment in the commentary for ambush convoy, and Panda says he would have tried to push the enemy into the corner where there's a lot more open terrain, and I couldn't agree more. Like in terms of a dream for the concept of operations, that's exactly what I would have wanted to do too. But one of the things I think I'm not that good at, and where I definitely need to grow as a general if I'm going to keep on trying to make Legendary a thing, is I'm not good at directing the AI to go where I want it to go. I'm very good at adjusting the plan. I'm very good at dynamic, a dynamic aggressive play is kind of my hallmark, I think. But where I need to grow is I need to grow in thinking about not just where the best place to fight is right now, but where the best place to fight is gonna be in like 10 minutes. And how do I get the AI there? So that's a thing for me to work on. That's an objective of mine, and I'm going to try and practice it in Shiloh. I'm going to have to, because in my mind, Shiloh is not a battle where you batter your way through the Union. Shiloh is a battle where you outmaneuver them, occupy the landing, and then challenge them to come to you. And you earmark one or two of the AI units to shoot the ironclads in the water, so that you're not just constantly taking you're not just constantly taking grape shot, the whole way through. So in the battle here, we've managed to take the wind out of the Union's proverbial sails. And now what I'm doing is I've got 1st Dragoon and 1st Lightfoot working on harrying their artillery package. I've got 1st Artillery pulled way the hell back. And I've got 7th Infantry in a blocking position so that whoever it is to the south, maybe it's MacArthur, I think, whoever it is to the south is going to continue kind of poking at me, and I just don't have the time right now to earmark the resources I need to running him down. I would like to, but I just don't have the time. And so, of course, he's going for flank shots and everything else, and that's fine, whatever. I'll live. But I need the reinforcements in position is my thought process right now. And 2nd, 3rd Infantry, 8th Infantry, they're going to be in place to pour devastating volleys into this infantry that is already kind of like looking for a safe space away from all the fighting. and we're not going to give them one. Like that's when I talk about like my personal play strengths when I get into them, when I get into the AI, unless I have a good like advantageous reason not to, I tend to sink my teeth into them and not let go. So good or bad, right? Pros or con. That's kind of I probably take higher casualties than I need to in some of these battles. So with the front feeling stabilized, I earmark 4th or 5th to support 7th. I think it's 5th. And so I've got 2 rifle armed units pouring fire into MacArthur. Well, I've got these other units here trying to get Tuttle out of there. And then before too long, I swing into the offensive with this 4th, 6th, 1st. I take them out of the woods in the safety of the cover, and I kind of come into the attack with them. But I'm just doing my everything I can to keep poking at their artillery. Keep poking at their artillery. Just keep on putting fire into it. Make them nervous. Make them turn. Make them look the wrong direction. You get what I'm getting at. And I'm also trying to make sure that I'm not taking more casualties than I need to in some of these places. So 2nd Infantry is taking a lot of canister right now, and I'm not wild about that. But I'm still trying to get my critical mass in place. And so what I do is I send 1st forward because they've got a great opportunity for flank fire. Just shut one of the batteries down. And then I've got 1st Lightfoot on one, and I've got the Dragoons on another. And, basically it's just kind of a combined arms attack of trying to hit them in every possible way. Because I figure once I get these guys posted up in this block of woods where the Dragoons and the 3 brigades are, once they're posted there, there's really nowhere safe for the AI at that point, because every direction leads to being pinned somewhere, except for the fact that what I should be doing is I should be pulling 1st Lightfoot out of where they're at right now, because I'm getting greedy is exactly what's happening. I'm getting greedy, and I want to put shots on that battery in the river. And what I should be doing is I should be pulling them back so that when the enemy retreats from this onslaught that they're currently suffering from, they're not going to retreat into my light infantry unit, which is, spoiler alerts, exactly what happens. But before that happens, we get some punishing volleys into their artillery. We cause some pretty, significant damage to their infantry units, and basically just shatter the force insofar as preventing it from being able to function as a combat arms unit. There are still bodies. They can still reform. It's still legendary, so even though there's no general on the field that I can see, there's still, plenty able to find the morale to keep fighting. And so we keep on doing it out. I bring 3rd Artillery to join the blocking force in the south, predominantly because, and right now I realize I read the writing on the wall. And I foolishly send 1st Dragoon to go and see if they can't scoop 1st Lightfoot out of there, which is maybe not what I should do, and maybe it is what I should do. I'm not really sure, kind of like, do I hang them out to dry? Like, it's my fault that they're there, okay. They should have gotten out of there a while ago, but do I hang them out to dry and theoretically like lose 2 units to rescue the 1? Or, what do I do? And I think ultimately what I decide to do is I realize I'm not going to be able to run them out of there. They're just going to keep getting shot by something. So I transition into a far more aggressive attack than I initially planned. By which I mean, I come out of the woods in force, and I endeavor to destroy the AI's ability to fight. Because there's no general, they're going to be more likely than not to rout rather than stand and fight. So that's what I do. That's what I do is I just continue my efforts to chain route them, except that for a moment, 1st Lightfoot's going to be kind of in a bad way. And then I push them against the northern roof of the map with an eye towards with an eye towards pinning them against the northern part of the map generally, and then creating kind of a corridor of death where they just don't really have it. Like kind of what I did in Ambush Convoy, actually, where basically they're pinned against the edge of the map and they're running towards a corner for whatever reason, and they just kind of have to endure a gauntlet. And the hope is that in doing that, they'll start, just like they'll continuously route the entire time. So what I should be doing here is I should be spending third and second left of their current position. Yeah, and I start to sort of realize that this is where things are headed. I send third over there, but I don't send second. And the reason I should is that first and fourth are more than sufficient for the task at hand. And second's just kind of overkill. One of the two of those brigades, either first or second, is kind of overkill for that current task. But it is what it is. So, yeah, in order to save First Light, the rest of the army goes on the offensive, and it works out actually pretty well here. Because they have no general, they don't really have stomach for a prolonged fight. And we're able to kind of keep them continuously running away, and then manage that. Basically managing that process is the rest of the battle. So from here on out, it's just managing cleanup. And I'm still kind of really eyeballing the board clear. I need to get a complete and total board wipe every time I go to the field, because I'm nervous about Shiloh. And then if that wasn't enough, I'm honestly nervous about Gaines Mill, and I'm honestly nervous about Malvern Hill. These battles are not unwinnable, but you have to think, did you win that battle and lose the war in the process, or did you win that battle in a way that you'll be able to continue to prosecute this war to a successful conclusion? Now, I know this game kind of abstracts a lot of things, like clothing our men, feeding our men, finding adequate water supplies, finding footwear, finding, tents. Like a lot of those logistical things are abstracted to the point of not being, relevant part of the discussion. I would love if this game had an upkeep stat where units, you paid a certain amount of money just to keep the unit running. Like unit salaries, right? Like you pay money to recruit veterans, but you don't pay money to recruit raw recruits. But they had salaries. And I suppose that's we say that that's being handled by the War Department, and that the money I'm talking about in my game here is the budget for my corps. And then I have control over how I utilize it. And the War Department handles the salaries. I suppose that is a reasonable reading of the facts that we don't have upkeep. That's fair. That's fair to have that discussion. But there's no real incentive to not grow, except for scaling. And, that's really it. So I know we're abstracting a lot of things about the maintenance of the army and the growth of the army and the, everything else. So we're also abstracting, military age male population of the South, fit for duty, military age males, fit for duty, willing to serve, who are not lamed and are not, malnourished, lamed from some condition or another, and are not needed for some vital war industry back home. So, guys with a college education who work in a foundry making cannon. That's like, we could give that dude a musket, but I feel like the war is better served if, Archibald Smith, right? Just like, let's just think of the most accounting or type name. If some dude with a college education and an engineering degree is like, well, here's a musket, go stand in line and trade blows with the Union, that's not an efficient utilization of that particular resource. It's not good utilization of capital. So we're abstracting a shitload of those things. Knowledgeable horsemen, cavalry, suitable horses. We're abstracting a lot of that stuff. Historically, the Confederacy was famous for having the best cavalry in the early war. Why? Because horse riding is sort of a national pastime, and it's considered to be a skill set of the effete gentleman, right? Like all those things are true, but the number of horses available that were suitable for military use dwindled over time in the South, as you may imagine. These are factors that we as players in this game never have to worry about. But the logistics associated with all of that are, I think, interesting. So we need to, in the game sense, really just think about, are we going to have enough money and men to make it to the next battle? And then that's it. We're not worrying about clothing them, feeding them, giving them boots, shotting the horses, feeding the horses, caring for the horses. We're not even worried about the horses that go into the draft carts for all the food, or the supply wagons, or the cannons. You think about that stuff too. Like there's a truly stupid amount of resources that goes into fielding an army in this era. So we take care of the forces in the North, and I've been talking at length about my worry about the level of casualties suffered in this battle. And if this isn't just a truism of the legendary playthrough anyway. Like if this isn't just a factor I'm going to have to accept of life in the legendary playthrough, it might be. And it might also be that when I hit a certain level of lethality. So I talked a little bit around lethality in Ambush Convoy, and I'd like to talk around that a bit. Again, I have a suspicion that a significant portion of what I'm experiencing at this level of the playthrough is due in no small part to the fact that my army is not yet properly optimized. I'm not utilizing 14-pound Jameses. I'm not utilizing, Enfields in large number, or Springfield 61s in large number. I'm not, all of these factors that might go into significantly increasing the ability of my army to destroy theirs at range, and allowing the player to maximize, player timing and player forethought and everything else to sort of prepare combined fires. So I'm taking big casualties in these battles now, and that's a price I'm paying for the fact that I chose the high training initial start. Excuse me. But will I be suffering the same level of casualties later? I don't know. And the reason I say that is every battle that goes by, the army is slightly more optimized, while the AI's army continues to be the same level of random. Now, it's the same level of random with higher perks and more of them and better weapons and larger brigades. Okay, all of that's true. But it's still random. So First Rifles, for example, has chosen 2 different perks that optimize the unit for shooting. They optimize First Rifle for shooting. They sacrifice speed, and they sacrifice turn rate. They sacrifice a lot of things to be as good as possible at shooting. And I'm running down MacArthur here. I'm not able to successfully get him until we get into the woods. And even though First Dragoon has the speed perk, for some reason MacArthur's able to outrun me, which tells me he also has the speed perk. So when the AI is fielding whole armies of 3-star units, that sounds intimidating, and it is. But, watch this. This is crazy. They somehow rally and pull off a volley while I am currently running them down. I'm really not sure how that happened, but yeah, it's straight fuck, dude. So I pull back and I'm like, okay, let's do this for real, like the right way, I guess. And I put the camera on very fast, and like my mentality right now is the mission ends when the mission ends. Like if they tell me, hey, you're done, that's all she wrote, the game's over at 11:30 or something, I'm like, yeah, cool, found. Sounds good. Like when I say I want a board clear, I don't really care too much about the extra 1,000 or 1,500, 500 guys, here and there. It's when we're leaving 8,000 casualties on the table that I begin to worry. But we may as well go for every kill we can get, and even better, captures. So additionally, all this time on the field is just more efficiency and more morale. All the moving is more stamina. Eventually, more fighting or shooting is more melee or firearms, respectively. Like all this stuff is just more stats for these units, as far as I'm concerned. So it's all good as far as all that stuff is concerned. More time on the battlefield is better for all these units, and it's unfortunate that I don't have a way to increase the stamina of my units short of marching them in battle, because you'd better believe that I'd march the shit out of them out of battle. I mean, Stonewall Jackson was infamous. His men, anyway, among his men, Stonewall Jackson was infamous for marching the ever-living bejesus out of his men. And then when the time came to actually fight, they all got it. They all understood, because they watched how sluggish and lethargic the movements of their peer units were and those of the Union, and they were like, oh, now we get it. It sucks. We don't like it, but we're enjoying the fruits of our labors, so it's okay. Bunch of light colonels promoted to major colonel, and a bunch of colonels got wounded. I bet what happened there is that units that so we captured some guns, whatever. I bet what happened there is notably a lot of parrots, which is great. Units that had colonels and the colonels got wounded got light colonels, and then the unit gained enough stats in the course of that to make them colonels. So anyway, that's stay alert. The army is like, first division's mostly okay. First division's fine. Second division's very badly beat up. I'll see you guys in the next one. Look forward for the camp video for Shiloh, and I'll see you guys soon. This is Fiasco signing out.